Alright, welcome into it. Bob Welch passed away 10 years ago already, somehow. Time has flown by, and I've always wanted to do Bob Welch studio albums kind of rundown. So this is the Bob Welch studio albums ranked. It's going to just be his solo efforts. So definitely check out what he does in Fleetwood Mac because that stuff is incredible, and I've talked about that rather on other videos before. But yeah, this is the solo stuff. So I believe we have 9 here. He did 6 in the 80s. The first 2 were really successful. Then after that, they really weren't. They get less and less successful as time went on. And I think all that stuff is really great, but we're going to start with some of the comeback material. So at the bottom of the heap, after a little bit of deliberation, it's going to be Bob Welch Looks at Bop, and this came out in 1999. It's supremely, well, I mean, it's his love letter to Bebop, right? But it's supremely, the way it's produced, it sounds very inorganic. It sounds, I don't know, just very overdriven and kind of fake. And he was obsessed when he came back later in his career with just digital and not doing anything analog anymore. And I think that was much to a lot of this material's detriment. There is some good stuff on here, and he did write a lot of original stuff. Of course, there's some tributes to Gershwin and Miles Davis, but yeah, it's a lot of original material in the style of, you know, Bop era Coltrane or Charlie Parker, stuff like that. It's an interesting listen, but it's not one you're going to put on very often because it just doesn't sound very professional. It was really cool to have him back, though, because it was probably like a 15-year gap between his 80s material and this one coming out in the late 90s. But yeah, it's pretty, I don't know, there's just something kind of unprofessional about it. That's what I hate to say it. It says, parental advisory, naughty lyrics, naughty lyrics. It's like a made-up parental advisory. It's not like the professional one. Because I think you could, when this came out, you probably could only get it on like CD Baby or like his online store or something. It wasn't like a mass-produced record. And it says the X, not EX, the X Fleetwood Mac Man's tribute to Bebop, and then his first new work since French Kiss. What? What about all the 5 other records? I can't believe they ignored like 3 Hearts, which I think went gold. They ignored that. They ignored Man Overboard. They ignored some of my favorites. His first work since French Kiss? No, it isn't. It's like his 6th or 7th record. And then it doesn't really matter what order these go in, these next 2, but I'm gonna put up, yeah, I'm gonna put up this one first. So I don't know. I don't ever put greatest hits collections in these album rankings, but these ones are re-recordings of his old material. So when it's The City, it's not the one he did in Mystery to Me, and Rebel Rouser is not the one he did on the other one. World Turning. He does do some other songs, like he does do What If He Stayed in Fleetwood Mac, what would that have sounded like? So World Turning, of course, is a Stevie Nicks, Lindsay and Christine song. Bob Welch was not in the group by that album cycle anymore, but he does do a few from the Stevie Nicks, Lindsey Buckingham era. So he does Rhiannon, which is excuse me, which is interesting, but you know, it's inessential though. You're not going to listen to this very often. And then he does Mystery to Me, which is kind of like what if he wrote a song Mystery to Me for that record, kind of. So it's not actually a cover of that era. This one here, Greatest Hits and More. I only included this higher because Like Rain is on here. And yeah, you got Hypnotized, Future Games, Miles Away, Emerald Eyes, I said, yeah, that one. Silver Heels, Sentimental Lady. So all these Fleetwood Mac kind of just classic songs, right? Miles Away from Mystery to Me. Hypnotized was his big hit, FM radio hit from Mystery to Me. Silver Heels from Heroes Are Hard to Find. Precious Love, which was a amazing song on his second record. But yeah, I only included this higher because I really like Rain, but it has that extremely processed sound to it that it just doesn't serve these songs well, unfortunately. But you can hear it on Spotify. It's a really nice piece, and I just wish it got the kind of treatment it deserved, like in the studio, because I really don't think it did. And then next up is going to be the eponymous Bob Welch album, which I always just refer to as the Yellow Album. And this has been reissued on Wounded Bird CD, but I got all the 80s stuff on vinyl because that's my preferred way of listening, I guess. But yeah, there was a reissued CD copy. It might have even had some bonus tracks, like some single versions or something like that. So this is Bob Welch going completely power pop, and it's kind of, yeah, it harkens to the sound that a lot of groups were going for in '81, so he's kind of trying to strip back all the disco influence from the first two records. You can hear a conscious effort to change his sound on everything that came after French Kiss and Three Hearts. This one is very consistent, but I don't think it has a lot of his best on it. But I don't have a problem with any of these. Like, even my least favorite, Bend Me, Shape Me, is pretty good too. But yeah, it's What You Don't Say, and Secrets is nice. I think my favorite two are Two to Do and Remember, the first two tracks. Those are the ones that stick out to me the most. And it's a good record. I really like it. It's solid, it's consistent, but I wouldn't put any of the songs on this record in my top 10 or 15 Bob Welch songs, so that's why it's kind of bottom of the 80s heap. But I still would recommend it, and it's got a different vibe than the other ones because it's kind of power pop. So next is going to be kind of controversial, but the very first solo record he did. And this, of course, has the huge hit Sentimental Lady on it, and also Ebony Eyes, which are both two of the highlights, as is Easy to Fall and Hot Love, Cold World. Some of the songs, like, they all have a disco influence, and they're all very of their time with how they're produced and that. And I think that's why I don't maybe put this on as much as some of the other ones, but I still really like it. And, you know, those 4 songs I singled out especially, those are amazing songs. And as overplayed as Sentimental Lady and Ebony Eyes are, they're amazing songs. They're classics. I'm putting this one a little higher just because of Precious Love, and there's some really nice material on here. Three Hearts is one of my favorite Bob Welch songs. Precious Love, like I already said. Devil Wind, which you can hear Stevie Nicks on. You can also hear Christine and Lindsay on Sentimental Lady from the album I just talked about. And I think it's time I take this 99 cents thing off, because that kind of cheapens the whole deal. But yeah, you can get a lot of these 80s Bob Welch records for really cheap, especially the first two, because they sold well, especially the one I was just talking about. I think it went double platinum. This one went gold, so, you know, the hype train was starting to depart or whatever. But yeah, other than a just decent, not great cover of the Beatles, I really like the material on this album a lot. And even that is decent, you know. I'm not going to get up and skip it or anything. Number 3, it's the other one, and this came just months after his second record, Three Hearts. This came out in about October of 1979, and this has Rebel Rouser and kind of a conscious effort to go in a more rock direction. As I said, for the power pop Yellow record, as I call it, the eponymous one, he's kind of trying to stray away from doing the disco thing. So this has a more rock kind of crunch and production. Straight Up is just completely insane. It kind of sounds like what he would do on Man Overboard. It's just completely processed, and there's so much going on. Like, there's all these electronic sounds and everything. It works really well. Hideaway is a really nice song. I think that maybe the cover of Future Games might be a little bit of a misstep, because it's not a bona fide classic like the future games that he did with the Mac, but it's not too bad. I think that might be my least favorite. Old Man of 17 is kind of a wise song for a younger guy to write, rather, kind of like how Neil Young wrote Old Man when he was 20, what, 3 or 24 or something like that. Kind of visionaries, right? And then we have number 2 is going to be Man Overboard, and this was my favorite for a really long time because it's just kind of like Lindsay's Go Insane. It's especially the first half of the record. It kind of loses that concept a little bit on the B side, but on the A side, it does sound like a man going overboard. It's very busy. It's very produced. It's very electronic. But there's some really good hooks in Man Overboard. I love Justine. Nightmare's pretty cool. B666 is really going way out there. So that's probably one of my favorites too. I love when they do that kind of stuff. And yeah, a lot of the later songs like Fate Decide and Reason are really nice. And yeah, there's even some pretty moments on it. So just like the last one, produced by Carter. Very cool record, and one of my favorites, was my favorites for years, or my favorite rather. And then we have Eye Contact, which I think is a lot of people's least favorite from the 80s, and I think that this one, it's definitely not rock like the other one, or even Man Overboard, I guess, but it's definitely bringing back kind of a dance 80s feel. Someone was trying to like kind of insult it by saying it sounded like a movie soundtrack, but I don't know, which I kind of agree with, but I think it sounds like a really good movie soundtrack. Like, you know, this is the age of Back to the Future and all that, so we got American Girls is one of the highlights, SOS, Bernadette, He's Really Got a Hold on Her, and Stay is really nice. So those are kind of the highlights. I'll Dance Alone, I think, was a single. I believe Fever was too. This is one of the Bob Welch records where every song is a highlight, and I think that's why it's my number one, because other than Man Overboard, there are songs that I do think are a little weaker on each one, even the most well-known. But there's never anything bad. Like, Bob Welch was a really good songwriter, singer. Many of these records he didn't write everything on. He would often get help, but there are always Bob Welch, you know, credits, or he did pen a lot of the lyrics and that. But I think he was just kind of an underappreciated, well, obviously an underappreciated member of Fleetwood Mac, but underappreciated as in his own field too. I think that really the hits should have continued for him, and I think just the public, you know, losing interest probably did him dirty. And he said that while they were making these records, they kind of thought they would just keep having hits and keep having success, and it just kind of dwindled out, and the money kind of just stopped coming in. And you know, as I said, each of these records did less good than the one that came before it, so he kind of petered out. And having a record like this to go out on, at least until this came out, Bob Welch Looks at Bob, you know, that's kind of sad to me, right? It's really sad. So number one was Eye Contact, which not many people would put as number one, but that one's grown to be my favorite. Number two, Man Overboard. Number three, the other one. Kind of a funny title, like he's poking fun at himself a little bit. Same Year. Number four, Three Hearts. Number five, the one that everyone knew with Sentimental Lady on it, French Kiss. 6, Eponymous, self-titled. Very ugly cover, but good record, still recommended. 7 and 8 are 7 and 8, the greatest hits recorded, plus some new material. And then bottom of the heap is this one. So let me know your favorite Bob Welch. Rest in peace to Bob. I can't believe it's been 10 years. When he passed away, Fleetwood Mac were putting Hypnotize back in the set list, but I saw them 6 months later and they'd already dropped it. So yeah, let me know your Bob Welch likes and dislikes. And for further listening, check those ones out. They're really good. This is Bob Welch doing hard rock, and most people like this one a little more. This one's very derivative of Zeppelin, but I think this one's kind of the more funky, kind of spacey. It goes a little out there. It doesn't have the hooks as much, but it is more Bob Welch. Like, it's a little more introspective. But really, you can't go wrong with either. These are really good, and if I were to actually put them within the ranking, this one might be 1 or 2 or 3. It's definitely up there, and this one would be like mid, I don't know, maybe like 5 or 6. Really good records, though. Anyway, that's kind of an aside, but I had to get them out at the same time. Bob Welch, love for Bob, and yeah, rest in peace. It's been 10 years. I don't know where the time has gone, so catch another video soon, and please leave your favorite Bob Welch LPs and songs in the comments. Thanks for watching. Adios.